But one last topic before we wrap up the show. 316. Of course, there's John 3:16, the Bible verse, but Austin 3:16. Anyone remembers King of the Ring of 1996? Now, before it was orchestrated for Triple H to win King of the Ring. That didn't happen, of course, because of the infamous curtain call at Madison Square Garden. So they gave it to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He fought one opponent. I don't remember who the first opponent was, champ. Maybe you can help me out. But Steve did have to go to the hospital because he had whatever amount of stitches in his mouth. He comes straight from the hospital, back into the arena, straight from the ambulance. He talks to Michael Hayes. Michael Hayes informs Steve that Jake the Snake, who Steve Austin beat in order to win King of the Ring, he said that Jake the Snake cut a promo when he used Bible verses to guarantee his win. And Stone Cold Steve Austin came up with John 3:16 because he thought because of the Bible verse and also on the football field. And remember, guys, back in those days when you saw the John 3:16 on the football fields? So Austin came up with Austin 3:16. And when he said Austin 3:16, I just whooped your ass. Oh my God. And then the next night on Raw, you saw all the Austin 3:16 signs and everything, man. It was just a great moment. I've said it before. A lot of y'all have John Cena as the GOAT. Some of y'all have Undertaker as the GOAT. Steve, I get it. He didn't do it for long. But man, that energy, that charisma, the personality that he had, mic skills, wrestling skills. Steve, man, when he cut that promo, and that was some people could actually look at it and say, was that the beginning of the Attitude Era? Because there have been a lot of moments which we could argue the Attitude Era. You even brought up WrestleMania 13 champ, the submission, the match between Bret the Hitman Hart and Steve. Some people could also say the Montreal screw job, which led to the development of Mr. McMahon, the biggest heel. But Austin 3:16, you could make a very valid argument. It was the beginning of the Attitude Era. And when Austin finally had the opportunity, because remember, just a year before, he was fired from WCW in 1995. Shout out to our guy, Paul Heyman, for allowing Steve to express whatever he wanted when he was on the mic at ECW. But man, Austin, he's my GOAT as far as with the mic skills, the personality. Like I said before, man, I would love to see him interfere in that match with Cody Rhodes and John Cena, and it's in Vegas, so he has no excuse not to be in that match. 400 miles away, and again, people would be tuned in. Just don't bring Hulk Hogan's ass to WrestleMania, but that's a story for another day. But Austin, when he cut that promo, oh my God. The everything about Austin, and then the Austin 3:16 t-shirts still selling like crazy. So BRF, what were your thoughts when you saw the Austin 3:16 promo?
To this day, I still think it's arguably the most important promo in the history of wrestling. I think it's up there. Like when you look at all time great promos, and as far as like how they influence a time frame of wrestling, you look at his promo, you look at CM Punk's Pipe Bomb 2011, and I know there's other promos out there that I haven't listed. But when you look at a time frame, I feel like those might be the two most important promos we've got the pleasure to be able to witness, and especially Stone Cold with the Austin 3:16, because I do think the submission match was like kind of like one of the catalysts as far as like the Attitude Era, because then it was like that transitioning period as far as Stone Cold went into that match as the heel. Bret Hart went into it as the babyface. But we were kind of getting into a new era of wrestling fandom to where it's like to where it was like the quintessential cookie cutter white meat babyface just wasn't cutting it anymore. And they were starting to really boo the daylights out of Bret Hart, whereas Stone Cold Steve Austin, they started gravitating with his style and started cheering him more. I feel like the Austin 316 promo was like like you already had the match and you just needed to light it. You needed the fire starter. And I feel like that was the fire starter because it got those fans invested in him and with him being the heel at the time. It the fans then really just started to really kind of gravitate towards him and they wanted something different, and that promo really was just the catalyst to what we ultimately like got down the road. And yeah, I do feel like the Montreal Screwjob was like that last little bit of like, okay, yeah, here we go now, because now they're bringing stuff like they're bringing that stuff out to the forefront. You see it in real time, like in front of your eyes. Like, was this really supposed to happen? I don't think this was supposed to happen like this. So it was just really the WWE, well, WWF at the time, just finding that new niche, that new edge, and they just tapped into it, and it just catapulted an era unlike stuff we had seen up to that point. The Austin 316 promo for me just really kind of it spoke to a lot of fans, and you could hear it when he was cutting the promo, and when he dropped that line in particular, the Austin 316 line, he damn near blew the roof off. And he's the heel. He almost tore the roof off of that with just that one line alone, because fans just weren't used to that type of charisma, to that type of edge, to that type of intensity cutting the promo. And that's why a lot of people, I think I look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, I think he's a top five, arguably top three mic worker of all time. Just because, like, yeah, he wasn't necessarily, he didn't have like he wasn't like, like his promo style was different. He didn't have like the charisma of The Rock being able to do a whole bunch of funny stuff, even though Austin could be funny in his promos.
Oh, he is
Not necessarily. Yeah, like he was a different type of funny from The Rock. He wasn't like The Rock. He wasn't like The Rock's funny. His funny was just like the what, the what chanting. Like, I had a beer, I had two beers, I had three beers.
BR,
Just
if there's one promo, I cannot give you all the details because again, we gotta be very careful. But there was one promo in which he said about Stephanie McMahon about am I about to stun my first what?
yes. I remember that. And the crazy thing, and he was retired at the time. That's the crazy part about it. He was retired. He was retired, and he's still dropping dropping heat. Like, you just like Stone Cold Steve Austin is just one of those. Just there's a select few on the microphone that were just untouchable. And Stone Cold is like tier one untouchable. Like, I feel like tier one untouchable is like him, Rock, Cena, and Punk. That's like tier one untouchable. It's like no matter who they're in the ring with, who they're battling on the mic with, it's like you have to bring your A plus game, because if you slip up once, they're gonna destroy you. So it's just one of those. It's like Stone Cold. He's one of them ones. And the Austin 316 promo for me is just, like I said, it's arguably most important promo in the history of wrestling. As far as just basically, when you think about the Attitude Era, you go straight. I feel like when you think about the Attitude Era, you go straight to Austin. You go straight to that promo, and then everything that transpired after it was just like, it was almost like it was like that. It was like the snowball, and it was just like once it got going, there was just no stopping it. And to this day, like, I could still, like, I don't even have to watch that match. I don't have to watch that event. Like, you find that video on YouTube of that promo. I can still sit and watch that promo because it's still to this day just that captivating, and you just believed every word he said at the time, being this new guy back in in the World Wrestling Federation wanting to take what's his, and you salute guys like that who had a game plan, who had a vision, and they executed it, and it just worked. And that's why you consider Stone Cold Steve Austin the GOAT. For me, he's right there. Like Cena, for me, Cena's mine. But at the same time, though, Austin is just like you got your god tier wrestlers, in my opinion. And Stone Cold is he's there. He's there.
Champ, and plus to add on before Champ adds, Stone Cold was a huge reason why, because he used to watch a lot of the WCW because of Stone Cold. He watched the WWF back then.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, big fella.
Stone Cold was the reason why I switched over from WCW to the WWE. I'm just being real. I was more, like I said, everybody knows that WCW's roots are Southern roots, plus, that time slot back when, WCW Saturday night was at 6. I was tuned into that every week. When I think about that promo, I think about the changing of the guard. It's like there's very, very few moments where you say, well, this is when it changed. But when you think about it, the cherry on top of the attitude of the new generation changing over to the attitude era, I said before, I say it again, was the submission match. But the beginning of that transition was that promo. Because you listen to Vince in the background, he's not as welcoming to all of the cursing and all of the stuff like that. And if you look at Michael Hayes or whatever the hell you want to call it, I don't know what his name was back then. I mean, because, for me, Michael Hayes is weird. No, I'm not trying to be funny. But I think he was
Doc Hendricks. He was Doc Hendricks then.
Because when I first looked at it, I was like, that's Michael Hayes. But when they start calling him Doc Hendricks, I'm like, who the hell is Doc Hendricks? But
Bruce Pritchard was brother love at one point.
Yeah. But it's just like, who's Doc Hendricks? We have Doc Hendricks on standby. Okay, that's Freebird Michael Hayes, but all right. But if you look at Freebird Michael Hayes' face, you can see how he really took a stutter step and looked around like, was he supposed to say that? It was really the beginning of it was cool to be bad. We was already in that era where it was cool to be bad. Gangster rap, grunge music, Pearl Jam, Beavis and Buttheads. We was already in that era. It just hadn't transferred over to wrestling as of yet. I say to this day, wrestling mimics society. It mimics society. And you will find nothing more relatable in society than cartoons and wrestling. It tells a story every time. And for him to say that and people to welcome it, because back in 1992, Stone Cold would have been a heel if he had said that against Jake the Snake.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been considered a heel. He would have been considered a strong heel. But in 96, that was a whole nother era.
Time to change.
It was an era of change and an era that I'll never forget. Because when he cut that promo, that was the beginning of the best part. The Attitude Era is one of the best eras in wrestling. Not just because of the cursing, not just because of the anti-hero, but it made wrestling cool. You wanted to be there. You wanted to have one of the signs in the crowd. When you used to look at Monday Night Raw, it used to be full of white signs, all over the place. It made you want to be there. It made wrestling cool. When I was a kid, I was considered, before the Attitude Era, you were considered kind of nerdish if you liked wrestling. Because you was talking about Hulk Hogan, you was talking about Lex Luger, you was talking about Bret Hart. The Attitude Era is the single biggest era that made wrestling cool across the board. And that's why I think the Attitude Era, although it might not have been the greatest in-ring wrestling era, but it was the greatest era to put wrestling on the map as far as it being cool across the board. I will say the Golden Era was great. I'm not taking anything from there. I'm talking about for my generation. My generation, it made wrestling cool. It made wrestling hip. Because I'm gonna just be real, when you was, in 92, nobody would give a crap about, even back then, when you went to school talking about Hulk Hogan, it's like, bro, Hulk Hogan, they would tell you back then, bro, Hulk Hogan ain't no real athlete, man. We ain't trying to hear about that stuff. But when you went to school and started talking about Stone Cold, everybody wanted to talk about it. And like I said, I'm not taking away from Hulk Hogan because of recently. I'm just telling you what I experienced back then. In the early 90s, when I would talk about wrestling, hey, nobody watch that wrestling. They would use certain words when it comes to describing it. But when Stone Cold and the Attitude Era came in,
it was real.
Right, yeah.
It was real, it was authentic, and it was refreshing, it was reinvigorating, and it's relatable. It got us in our generation to relate. And it attracted grown folks. People didn't want to hear about the cartoon superheroes. They wanted somebody that they can relate to. So, and Steve, reason why I love it with Steve, and he's the ultimate badass. But because you look at Mr. McMahon, Austin, arguably, in my opinion, the greatest rivalry in wrestling history, because here you got Mr. McMahon, CEO, chairman of the company, biggest heel out there. People can't stand him because he's brash, arrogant, rich, power. But people love Steve because he's brash, but he takes no shit from nobody. I mean, he loves to open up a can of whoop ass. What better way? And people love Steve. He's the type of person you can go to a bar and have a beer with. He's the type of person, if you want to raise hell, that's your guy. If you want to wear the edgy clothes, that's your guy. Steve still has like a connection to even some of the younger people to this day. Like you see them wearing the Austin 316 t-shirts or the outfits. Steve played a huge factor. He was in a pop culture genre. And also, like I brought this up in JR. He believes Steve is the greatest he's ever seen it. But I did say at one point, JR and Steve is kind of like the wrestling version of Ahmad Rashad and Michael Jordan. That's the best way. I mean, from a wrestling standpoint, they are the wrestling version of Ahmad Rashad and Michael Jordan, based on their relationship, their chemistry, how the way they talk in ring, outside the ring, wrestling, football, booking, everything. It also tells you how special Steve was and still is when it comes to the mic skills. And imagine had he had that in WCW. If he and think of what he was in WCW. I mean, stunning Steve Austin. I mean, Bischoff even said he would have been mid-card. He would have been a mid-card type of guy. And him watching the HBO, the Iceman special on Richard Kuklinski, for him to become that sinister character. And then the name Stone Cold Steve Austin, which his ex-wife at the time gave him that nickname because she made him a cup of tea and told him, hey, drink it before it gets stone cold. I just love Steve because badass, rebellious type of person. If you want to see somebody raise hell, whoop ass, generates attraction, money. And I tell you, I guarantee you, if you hear that glass break, if Steve interferes in that match between Cody Rhodes and John Cena, especially with John Cena as the heel, if you thought Undertaker, and that was great, you don't think people would be tuned in to see Steve with that glass break? All hell would break loose.
It would be kind of like seeing, and to your point, it'll be kind of like seeing Jordan come back in Game 7 to help out LeBron with his fifth one. It'll be kind of like that.
There you go.
That would be great.
Man, and let me tell you something. Now, WrestleMania 40, I remember when the gong hit, when The Undertaker came out. That was arguably the loudest pop of WrestleMania 40 when Undertaker came. If Austin were to come out at WrestleMania 41, it would be the Undertaker pop times 5, like straight up.
Because the minute you hear that glass break, ding.
They need to be in. They would need to be in an outdoor arena for something like that, because a stadium would not be able to hold that pop. They need it. They need an open stadium for that pop.
You know, I would love to see how would Steve interfere in that match. 2 matches I look at. When he interfered in the Rock versus Mankind match, when Mankind won the championship back in 1999 or 1998, or Backlash 2000 when he interfered in the Triple H versus The Rock match, and then he hits everyone with a steel chair. Patterson, Briscoe, Triple H, Shane, and then of course Vince. I mean, but when you think of Mount Rushmore, and when you Steve's there, you got Cena, you got Rock. I mean, if you want to add Hogan, Flair, that's fine, but you got to include Austin, because before that neck injury, people have forgotten how good of a technical wrestler Steve was back in his early days. And with the mic skills, and with the swagger, and with the attraction he still has to this day, I still have him as the GOAT. And as far as with the money, like, I mean, other than Cena and Rock, can you or Hogan, can you name someone probably help make more money than Austin, other than the Undertaker?
No.
And well, I'll say this though, the Undertaker's aura is just who he was as a character. Undertaker was never the draw that Stone Cold Steve Austin was. Undertaker got his respect from his aura, his character, how he carried himself, how he wrestled. Just he just commanded respect, and the character was just so large in life. But when you really think about it, even Undertaker would tell you he was never the draw Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
But fellas, man, one hell of a conversation. Great show.